Yeah, I go by Denley Music, Denley, and that's my handle on Instagram, Denley Music, Denley Music.
So nasty that is probably.
You know, tell us a little bit about his KMD days, right? Because I think a lot of people know about MF Doom because of two things, really, right? His Mad Villain, you know, legendary collaboration that he did with Madlib, right? And then also, kind of, connected to what we're doing right now around shoes and culture, right? Like the Nike Dunk SB that was released, right? And so
Yeah.
I think for folks who maybe don't know, maybe much outside of that stuff, like what would you like? How would you, summarize the pre MF Doom phase of his career?
Yeah, I'm definitely not the authority on the KMD stuff by any means.
Yeah,
but
It's kind of old school.
But I definitely went back and kind of did my homework on it after hearing Operation Doomsday, which we'll get into in a little bit. But the first KMD album is this one called Mr. Hood.
Yep.
And
such a trippy cover, yeah.
The lead single, right, is Peach Fuzz on that.
Peach Fuzz, exactly.
Everybody knows that song.
And Who Me was another one on there. But yeah, so what's great about this one, and I guess to answer your question of what separates the KMD stuff from the MF Doom and all the rest of it, this is definitely more sort of Afrocentric, more socio-politically minded, of what's going on at the time and some of the disparities within music, and especially mainstream versus underground, if you can even call it that. But what's cool about this particular, and that was a very tertiary sort of explanation, but what's cool about Mr. Hood is that they used a language instructional record. I think it's a French record of a kind of nerdy white guy learning French and visiting all these different places and trying to talk with people, and they interjected it with the KMD dialogue as if they're poking fun of this guy that's called Mr. Hood, and he kind of runs throughout the whole album. And of course the famous KMD logo with the Sambo with the line through it, definitely racially charged, and
very much connected to like his eventual MF Doom origin story, right? Because the next album comes out, right, Black Bastards, and super controversial. Yep, right there. I'll save my little Black Bastards piece for later on.
What's trippy is I've seen that cover hella times and didn't even trip that.
Yeah. So it actually got shelved by Elektra a month before it was supposed to come out because of the cover, or that was one of the reasons. And then it didn't get released until 2001 on Subverse, which is with like Black Alicious, Signs of Life, Sea Raised Walls, Big Jess, like all that sort of stuff. But then on the inside cover is Sub Rock, his brother, who I think got hit by a car in a crosswalk and died.
Yeah, very tragic death.
You might have to fact check that, but
all good.
That's them on the inside. And of course,
so who's Doom?
You can see he's already starting to kind of conceal his identity, and that's the precursor to the mask.
Interesting.
And even with KMD, like the first real Zevlev X, which was his name in KMD, the first real sort of appearance was in this song called The Gas Face by Third Base, which was a posse cut. And Zevlev X had a verse in it with no mask on. And that was prior to his kind of exit from the industry and exit from the shadows. And I'm sure, Black Bastards getting shelved had a lot to do with that, and just being overly being dissatisfied with the way the industry was going. And he's already starting to toy with the idea that he's obviously really great at rapping and wordplay in some of the lyrics in KMD. I wrote some fun stuff down of songs I like, but on Mr. Hood, there's a song called Hum Rush, and he says, bugle boy, toot your own horn. Frugal won't endure as the talents was born. Minus the John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. His name ain't my name, cause X ain't permitting shit. So there's that. And then on Black Bastards, he says, Zev loves to rock the venue then. See you, never be you. In fact, glad I never been you. Scratched off the menu. I continue with the yell up so props might develop. From the duels, no clues to head swellers. I don't suggest taste testing if you can't digest. So he's already drawing a line in the sand and saying, like, if you can't hang with what I'm with my wordplay and my references and my style, then go listen to something else, because there's plenty more out there, you know. And plenty of other stuff got dropped from Elektra that year. Like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Juggernaut's Clear Blue Skies, another great album, was part of that whole thing, and that didn't come out till we were in high school as a result.
I have that CD somewhere around here.
But so that's you know, the KMD stuff in a nutshell, in a very small nutshell.
Very small.
Yeah,
I'm sure that I can go much longer, but damn, interesting.
And then
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say the next one is Operation Doomsday. But
the right, one of the late great 20th century masterpieces of music, right? And I know I've been, you know, I have my vinyl set right here.
Yeah.
I'll show off later, but you know, I've been back to it, and man, like, it is such. It's a masterpiece. It's
Whoa.
Ooh, man, right?
This is what started it all for me, and the I remember down to the song, the moment at which I was like instantly hooked, is a song on here called Dead Bent, and it's the video is what started for me, because I think it ended up on the Hip Hop Infinity message board, and there was a video by Chibo Mato Gomez, you'll know this, Sugar Water, and it's basically Michel Gondry. It's 96, and it's basically one camera is going forwards and the other camera, she's going backwards, and then at a certain point in the video they kind of intersect because they're in the same sort of general environment, and then the backwards screen starts going forward and the forward screen starts going backwards. And so the Dead Bent video is kind of I would say less realized version of that. It's him like in the studio or in his house, and then kind of like meandering around this dark alleyway in one frame, and then in another frame he's like buying fruit at the grocery store and while rapping and like throwing the fruits into this plastic bag and running around the street scaring people. And I just was like, what the fuck is this guy's deal?
Kind of wondering that right now.
Yeah. And so that was what did it, was Dead Bent. And there's one line in it that is genius, and it's what hooked me. There's so much baked into this line. He says, I had this style ever since I was a child. I got this other style I ain't flipped in a while. It goes, pure scientific intelligence with one point of relevance. MCs whose style need velements. And once the smoke clear, tell them it's the super motherfucking villain. Came through raw like the elements.
Like, come on, like, genius.
What? Like not to sound like a hip hop nerd and be like, oh son, like that was
but also, like, but you know, it's his bootleg or, you know, homage to Gondry, right? Mm-hmm. And I think when I think about Doom 2, like, all of this stuff is kind of like really, it's none of it is perfect, right? Mm-hmm. Like Operation Doomsday, you know, part of the reason that I love it is that there are mistakes. Mm-hmm. Like it's not exactly like the best sound engineered, right, or produced album. Like
No.
and I'm talking about like the quality,
Sure.
right, like the actual sound quality, right.
Sure.
But like he made the most that he could do with it, right. And when I think of Doom and I think of that album, like it's somebody who was able to, like, with all these limitations, still crank out like the best thing possible with whatever tools and whatever like limited knowledge that he had. Like, man, he just, this is it. This is what I present to you. It's flawed,
right?
But that's why we love Doom.
Operation Greenbacks is another great song on the album. And
hey, it's my jam. That's my song right there.
Yeah. He's got a line in it where he talks about a parable of three. And this is another one where like there's so much baked into the lyrics. He says, on the D-Lo, I slaughter solo MCs, they paper thin. In the Polo, Nautica, or DK Men. So already he's going with the three thing, right? And then he says, amen. It's funny how significance makes a difference. Notice parables of three in every other inference. For instance, who won a battle on the reel? Choose your weapon, microphone beats, or the wheels of steel. I own a crown in all three for getting down without a doubt. I'd like to give an extra special shout out to Jet Jaguar, the Sun, Moon, and Star, the Monster Island Czars. Y'all know who you are. And it's just like, on the surface, that just sounds like a great rap. But if you dig a little deeper, he says, I notice parables of three in every other instance. And then for the rest of the rap, it's units of three, Yeah. And just...
And it's so technical.
Fucking Shakespeare status.
I think us as just nerds in general, like that's what I loved about it. Like just the wordplay, the layers, like you mentioned, the pop culture references.
So this is the deluxe version of Operation Doomsday that has it's got a bunch of demos on it, and Jason Jagle did the artwork, and he's got some stuff in San Francisco, and I believe he did the Food as well with Jeff Jank, the cover. But yeah, so that's the deluxe version, and then these ones I'll just gloss over because I want to get to the meatier stuff. But right after that was the collab with MF Grimm, which was just a short EP. And there's a great song on here called Impostas, and he says, I can tell they sees these styles as too tricky. They're too picky on this microphone doohickey. And I just thought it was so cool that he said doohickey. Just like pop culture shit that you would say when you're talking to your homie is like very much in his raps. And that gets back to the whole, accessibility aspect. And then he did this group album with Monster Island Czars, which is getting into, it's a nice segue into the King Ghidorah stuff, because after a while he like broke off from the solo and or from the MF Doom persona and started doing King Ghidorah, which is Godzilla based. It's the three-headed dragon, and so the New York skyline and what have you. And then here we go with King Ghidorah.
My personal favorite Doom song is on this album right here, right? This is what? Antimatter?
Yeah,
it's
very good.
Like, come on, like that song is... Whew.
It's very good. Yeah, and Phasers too.
And Phasers, right? Those two might be like the top two Doom songs. Like, I mean, it's hard to I was with our mutual friend JC, like, we were just going back and forth about like, and this was prior to the death, right? Like, we like constantly or occasionally we'll text each other like, so what's your top 5 Doom song, top 5 Doom list, right? And it'll like change and evolve over time.
Yeah. So, and then, I mean, let's keep rolling, I guess.
Yeah.
So, and then after that was Victor Vaughn.
Yeah.
Which I guess Victor Vaughn in the folklore of MF Doom, I think Victor Vaughn is the scientist that then would become MF Doom. So even within his or would become Dr. Doom. So even within his own catalog, he's like, all right, I'm gonna fill in the backstory and give some like, info about dude. And yeah, I mean, there's just so many great tracks on this one, especially the first one. There's a song called Vaudeville Villain, which it's the first track, and it's also the name of the album. He says, "Ay caramba, now that's my number. One dry summer, as far as I remember. Burnt out, but gaining every edgy penny. Then he hit him straight to the head like Reggie Denny." And of course, Reginald Denny was the dude in the LA riots who got hit with the cinder block in his head. And just that's more just, you know, pop culture. Like a kid nowadays wouldn't know who Reggie Denny is.
Hell no, I didn't know who that was.
You know,
that's super cutty.
Yeah, that's like over the head type shit.
Yeah, and then there's a bonus track on here at the end called Change the Beat, and he says, "Villain for hire, admire the sound. Make sure the price is right before he come on down. Rappers be on some you forgot who they talking to. Too much pork stew. They need to not come out with nothing new. Blew the whole shit up on some what this button do. Doom cheat the game like walkthrough. Run 'em, son 'em like Mr. Rourke do Tattoo." And Mr. Rourke and Tattoo were on Fantasy Island, which was that sitcom. And Mr. Rourke was like the super bougie, suited and booted, like pimp-tacular guy. And then Tattoo was the little person assistant, Hervé Vilches.
Little sidekick kind of, yeah.
So again, more pop culture. Like this guy thought that it was important to him to put in, you know, late night 70s TV reference in his rap, and I just love him for it, you know.
Again, people that I wouldn't expect to know, they know him.
Yeah.
Right. And again, and I think a lot of it is due to this album. So
yeah. So obviously this is Mad Villainy. This is the collab with Madlib, which is where the Mad part comes from. There's this album, I would say, is probably the most known of any MF Doom album in the catalog, just because it transcends generations. Like there's a lot of kids in their 20s now that are getting into like buying a SP404 and making their own beats and stuff, and this is on like all the lo-fi beats to study and chill to playlists and things like that. Like this is the most accessible, I would say, in his whole catalog, whereas something like Operation Doomsday might be a little bit too edgy and too boutique-y and too deep on the references. This is just a every man album, you know what I mean? Way too many good tracks on here to mention, but I love this opening part in a song called Great Day Today. He says, "Looks like it's going to be a great day today to get some fresh air like a stray on a straightaway. Hey, you got a light? Nah, a Bud Light. Early in the morning, face crud from like a mud fight. Looky here, it's just the way the cookie tear. Prepare to get hurt and mangled like Kurt Angle's rookie year. The rocket scientist with the pocket wine list. Some might even say he might need some psychiatrist. Doom, are you pondering what I'm pondering? Yes, but why would the darn thing be wandering? She's like a foundling, barely worth fondling. My posse's on Broadway, like Mama, I want to sing."
Come on, like
so many fucking things in there. My posse's on Broadway, Sir Mix-a-Lot reference, Kurt Angle wrestling reference, you know.
The foundling mind? What was that about?
She's like a foundling, barely worth fondling. My posse's on Broadway, like Mama, I want to sing. Like Annie reference, like Mama, I want to sing. You know, I'm on Broadway. So there's levels. There's just
an animal, right? Like an animal that's just been born, right? Like the word between foundling, right, and fondling, like. Yeah, don't touch that girl. She's too young for you guys.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So I mean, there's not much I can say about Mad Villainy that hasn't already been said, other than, you know, it's Madlib on the beats, and it's very sort of dusty and introspective and warm and inviting and crackly, and I just love it. So he's on the SP12 there.
Yeah.
So that's Mad Villainy.
I wanted to say one last thing, and again, to go into like deep doom nerddom, right? Sure. Like there. So what I also remember about that album was how and I know Matt, I know you remember when the when the MP3s first leaked, like the original version of that album, right? And like I you know, I always tell people there are certain versions of the original MP3 leak that I actually like better than the ones that made it to the album. Like that's like
big time.
Like
big time. And the track order was all out of whack, and there was like hella more like weird Street Fighter samples and
yes,
just
for sure.
Yeah,
right.
This I won't talk about very much because it's a lot like the MF EP that I showed before with him and MF Grimm, only it's mostly MF Doom on the beats and MF Grimm on the raps, and it's a lot of stuff that MF Doom already rapped over, so it's kind of fun to hear new different takes on it. Obviously it's got the big bag of weed on the inside.
Yep.
This looks like some fucking whack ass weed.
Yeah, some swag.
Some New York shit.
Yeah.
My bad.
No. So, exactly. Some twigs and berries, some stems.
Some twigs and berries, for real.
Jason Jagle, sorry, and Jeff Jank.
Jeff Jank, who also created the Quasimodo character, right?
Right, exactly.
And I was texting with Matt yesterday about if you listen to the Spotify version right now of Food, go to the last song, Cookies. It's not the original beat, and I totally was not like, I did not know that until I opened up my Spotify and I was listening to Food, and I get to Cookies, which is like damn near my one of my favorite, if not definitely my favorite song off of that album, and it's not even the original version anymore.
Where did because I remember there being a disparity. Do you remember where would the original be on that CD or
yeah, like on your CD for sure, but I'm like now because everybody's consuming music digitally at this point, right? And streaming services, but so if you go to and listen to the current version of Cookies, it's not the same version. It's
weird.
There must have been some type of legal dispute. That MF Doom was definitely involved in a lot of legal disputes because of the nature of his characters, right? And obviously homage to Marvel Comics and stuff like that. So, but just as a side note of that album.
Next is Danger Doom, which is the collab with Danger Mouse. Then this is where it's Adult Swim, where he starts getting more and more into the public, pop culture focus, and it's got tons of Adult Swim tie-ins like C-Lab and Aqua Teen Hunger Force and stuff, and Perfect Hair Forever, and all those great cartoons from back in the day. I mean, this is a great record. Crosshairs. Yep.
Also probably top 10 Doom song also for me, right there. Crosshairs for sure.
Yeah. Sofa King, and then Talib is on here. Old school Talib Kweli's on here.
Yep.
And where in this discography does the Dunks come out?
July 2007.
2007. So it was somewhere in between, right?
The Nike Dunk High SBs.
For sure. And I remember
I would not rock those personally. But yeah, they're cool.
I remember being on Nike Talk
at
that point in my life, and I was already trying to do the resale flip thing.
Yeah.
And I remember desperately trying to get my hands on that pair, but like it was just damn near impossible. And it probably would have required me to camp in the TL in the Tenderloin in the city for like multiple days.
Which people camping there.
For sure.
Interesting. So I mean, there was obviously a fan base, a big fan base at that point. If the shoe is selling like that it's impossible to get.
Here's Born Like This.
Was that like his last? Technically, his own last individual solo album.
Yeah, it's his last. It's his last solo record. He had other collaborative things, after that.
Yeah.
So.
And there's a couple of Jay Dilla beats, if I remember correctly. Right. R.I.P. to Dilla.
He got introduced to Charles Bukowski from someone, and so Born Into This is a Bukowski poem, and he changed it to Born Like This for the album title. But yeah, I mean, there's some Dilla stuff in here. I remember, didn't Tom York do a remix of Gazillion Year for this?
Yeah, for sure.
There's like a Galt McDermott sample on here that he credits. This is like way later in his career, and I would say is a lot more mature than the rest of his catalog, like way more introspective and personal and vibey. There's
a little bit more polished too, right?
Yeah, a little bit more polished. There's some jams on here. He raps over Lightworks from Donuts on here.
Donuts, yep.
And then there's the Janiro Jarrell collab. I'm kind of glossing through these, but this is the collab album with Janiro Jarrell, which I think was 2012. This one, the beats are a lot more teched out. There's a lot more going into the production, but it's got Guv'nor, which I think was the video where he's in the warehouse, and they had 2 camera shots combined together. So there's a line down the middle of the shot, and it's like him looking all herky jerky in the video. There's another one where he's like wearing one of those mirrors from a convenience store, like the circular ones they put in the corner. He's like wearing it over his face and walking around. Yeah, so Janiro Jarrell, I think, also fucked with Adult Swim pretty heavy, and so I think that's the connect there. But this one, I gotta say, if I'm gonna be candidly obvious or honest about a particular album in his catalog, I like this one a little bit less. There's actually Damon Albarn and Beth Gibbons. So Damon Albarn from Blur and Gorillaz and Beth Gibbons from Portishead are both on this. Don't like it as much as the other stuff in his catalog. I think some of the beats were a little bit too like esoteric for my liking.
Yeah, too experimental. Yeah, I definitely like. I think we had that same moment as a Doom fan where you just had to get off the train slightly, right? Like, you know, just like you mentioned, right? The second that, you know, I remember seeing the Adult Swim trailers initially and being really excited, and then at the same time I was like, damn, like I guess I gotta let you go, man. Like,
and then lastly is just the whole host of special herbs and spices compilations.
Man, this one had music,
which I didn't even really show because they're all just compilations of the instrumental versions of other beats in his catalog. Sometimes, you know, different versions or alternate remixes and things. But these are fun to get drunk and freestyle to with your friends.
Oh man.
And then this is kind of a off the radar one that I picked up at Amoeba randomly. The label was called Shaman Sounds, and the compilation is called The Family Files Volume 1. I got this because there's a KMD track on here after Sub Rock died, and they made John Robinson from Signs of Life, they made him an official member of KMD, and there's a song called Sorcerers on here, which is fire as fuck. It's one of my favorite MF Doom related songs. And then there's another collaboration with this dude Science Fiction, whose name I think is like Wale OG Day. You should look it up on Wikipedia because I'm gonna butcher it, but it's got a bunch of different MF Doom related bits and pieces, and that's what I loved about it. Just to kind of wrap up the discography heavy stuff, is that it didn't matter whether you were going to the store to like buy the full album that you heard about. There was always stuff on the periphery for you to enjoy. The guy was so prolific.